So as a disclaimer, this will be recorded for those individuals that have registered but won't necessarily have a chance to join us. My apologies. Okay. So thank you for joining me. We are going to talk today about furthering your career as a business analyst or leveraging business analysis certification to further your career in other functions, which is also entirely possible. So I thank you for joining. My name is Laura McCoy, and I am the president of the Adaptive US market. My apologies, I can't change that setting. Okay, so I thank you for joining me. We're going to start this process by talking a little bit about what IIBA is. So if you aren't familiar with it, it is the International Institute of Business Analysis, and you can find their information on IIBA.org. They are a nonprofit, they're based out of Canada, and their primary focus is on business analysis. They don't try to blend it with other functions or other capabilities. They specifically focus on business analysis, treat it as a career. Now that's agnostic of title, so keep that in mind. I'm going to have to give feedback on getting that set to auto admit. Okay, so they focus on business analysis. Now there are, as of a few months ago, there were more than 29,000 registered members with IIBA. Now, that doesn't mean that those individuals are certified. It just means that they engage in best practice and they are focused on, those individuals are focused on improving their business analysis capability. Now, often that's because of the fact that IIBA is a provider of business analysis certification. Now, they're not the only one that provides certification. You have some universities that are providing certifications about business analysis. You have Certified Professional Requirements Engineer certification out of the UK, but IIBA is the only one today that provides a tiered approach to certification, therefore lending it very, very well to career path, career growth. And they also are the only organization that engages worldwide. They, for the documentation, the design, the development of the best practices for business analysis, they engage people all over the world. So they really look at not just one specific culture. They find the commonalities, they find the best practices across the board, and they engage all of those people on a volunteer basis to help them maintain, manage, and update the actual body of knowledge that is supported by IIBA and is the source of the information expected for certification. The levels of certification, we start with the entry certificate, and that's ECBA. That's great for people that haven't done the actual functions of business analysis, regardless of title, or are just coming out of college or something like that. And it's a great way to get your foot in the door. But if you have 3,750 hours over the last 7 years, and that equates to, if you consider a 2,080 hour work year, which is typical, particularly in the US, that's about 25 to 35% of your workday being spent performing the functions of business analysis. So it's really not that hard to qualify for that. It also, it's the techniques, the tasks, and I'll cover some things that will help you relate to that and understand how to evaluate where you would fall. So you don't have to have the title of business analysis. And then you have the level 3, which is the top tier of the certifications for business analysis, and it requires more experience as a business analyst. Now, I'll cover some more of that again in a little bit, but it still only ranges between 30 to 40% of a work day being spent doing, or a work year being spent doing the functions. A fairly new certificate is the Agile Analysis certification. It doesn't have any of the same level of expectations or requirements of the interested party or the applicant, and it focuses on how a business analyst performs in an Agile methodology. And so it's a really great way to show both your BA capability as well as your Agile methodology capability. Now, ideally, you become a member. If you're going to get certified or you want to grow your career, whether or not you go certification, you join IIBA. They have a free version of the Babok that's a digital version, so you don't have to pay for it. And they also have a significant number of books, and it grows over time in their online library. So those online books, that's a digital repository of books that range anywhere from BA to QA to PM to psychology to business, all kinds of things. And could I ask everyone to mute themselves unless you have a question, because I'm getting some background noise. So I thank you in advance for that. Also, the membership costs $125 when you first get it. After that, it costs $110 to renew. But if you are a member, you get a $125 discount on your exam. So it's almost like a free membership if you're going to consider certification. There are also a network of local chapters. There are national chapters. There are all kinds of networking opportunities that come with being a member. So being a member of IIBA does come with some really great benefits. So, okay, you've said, I see the value of being a member. What about certification? So why should I be certified? Because if we're honest, certification processes are often not fun. I mean, it takes work, right? So certified business analysts, given wherever you are in your career, when you evaluate at your level, your peers, typically a certified analyst earns approximately 16% higher on average income. So obviously that's a motivator. It gives you more opportunities for advancement. Business analysts that want to be senior BAs or lead BAs or managers of BAs, a certification will definitely give you more consideration compared to your competition, right? It helps you stand out. It also, I've been doing business analysis for over 15 years when I found certification. So I was pretty good at it, but through the process of really diving into the Babok and talking to other business analysts, I actually became even better at what I was doing. And the better I am at it, the better I'm able to meet need and provide value and make a difference. And so at the end of the day, no matter how frustrating this job is, because if we're honest, it can be really frustrating, I feel good about it, right? So certification, I'm immediately treated with higher respect because I must know what I'm talking about. I learn new techniques and I learn new ideas that I'd never thought of before. So I have a bigger toolbox, a bigger bag to pull things out of. So it's just really better overall. So for me, it's all about my big why is making a difference for people. And because of that, I have opportunities to grow. And that's why I love and maintain my certification. So here's some information that we've already talked about. IIBA, there's no work experience required. There are no references, nothing big to consider there. The only thing it does require is that you've had 21 hours of professional development over the last 4 years. So that's something that you would want to be aware of. CCBA does have some expectation. Both CCBA and CBAP have reference requirements, so you will have to provide 2 references. They don't get contacted or they don't get engaged unless your application is chosen for audit. However, we should expect that, right? So that no one's surprised. So it's always best to let your references know in advance. It has the same level of professional development expectation as your ECBA, so 21 hours in the last 4 years. But the difference between ECBA and that is, as I mentioned earlier, 3,750 hours. So approximately 25 to 35% of your workday spent performing the tasks that are in the Babok in the last 7 years. Now, there's a further constraint. In the knowledge areas, the Babok is broken up into 6 knowledge areas, and at least 2 have to have 900 hours, or at least 4 have to have 500 hours. And that might sound a bit complicated, but it's really not that difficult to achieve. Now, comparing that to CBAP, there are more hours expected, and you must have 900 hours in 4 knowledge areas. You can accomplish this requirement in less than 5 years. But it is, if you're performing a hybridized role, then you will need to very likely have more than 5 years of experience when it comes to calendar years. But a total, the 7,500 hours, it actually equates to under 4 years of true active experience, meaning that's all you're doing all day long. And another difference is that it requires 14 more hours of PDUs. AAC, there are no requirements. We recommend training so that you're prepared for the exam, but they don't require it from you. So AAC can be taken by anybody. You don't have to have any other certifications. You don't have to have experience, no references, no PDUs. It has the least constraints on it. So that is it for the requirements from IIBA. I'll be giving you some information throughout this presentation that will help you figure out, if you were to continue forward with certification, which one would be most appropriate for you. And please feel free to speak up. If you've got questions for me, interrupt me. Don't wait for me to stop. I have a lot of information to share with you. I plan on moving through it unless someone has an immediate question, and then open for Q&A at the end. Now let's talk about cost. Obviously, there's going to be fees, and there are going to be fees associated with IIBA that are not modifiable, and then there are going to be costs associated with training, and when it comes to training, you can go about it different ways. But from an IIBA perspective, ECBA is the least expensive one, primarily because it has a lot less expected of the individual, and it's easier for us to manage when it comes to IIBA, and it is more cost absorbing for those individuals that are really early in their career. So the dollar range that you're seeing is because depending on your location, the cost could change. There are a few locations, not many, that have higher fees with IIBA. But the majority of you will experience the number at the lower end of the spectrum. So $225 for ECBA, it's an hour question. It's an hour-long exam. It has 50 questions, and it's primarily about memorization, so definition and knowledge. It's not about applicable capability. I mean, it helps if you have that experience, but it's not necessary. You can do it from anywhere. It's an online proctored exam. It does have a proctoring, so you do have to schedule it. And we recommend that you spend about a week and a half to 2 weeks of pure studying over the course of 1 to 1.5 months. And you can study while you're in class. If you take a class with Adaptive, we spread it out over the course of a month. So it's really, you can start studying immediately. CCBA and CBAP have the same cost. CBAP is 3 hours with 130 questions, and it's a mixture of that knowledge and definition stuff as well as scenarios. And scenario means they give you like a paragraph, a small description of a situation, and then they give you a question and ask you for that situation, which of these would be the most appropriate option to select, right? And CBAP is a half hour longer with fewer questions, but there are no definition and knowledge base. It's memorization is recommended for certain elements, but it's a lot more about, can you do the work? So it gives you do have scenarios like CCBA where you get a paragraph and then you answer a question, but it'll also have case-based questions. And the cases can be pages long. It'll be a very descriptive situation, a case. And you have to look at that, and then you answer a series of questions about that single case. So it really makes you basically pretend you're an analyst with that specific situation handed to you, and you answer questions about how would you handle that. Both of these tests are done at Prometric Center. You have to go to a center to take a test. You check in, you give all of your belongings, and you put them in a locker, and you go and you take an exam. We recommend 2 to 3 full weeks of studying over the course of 1.5 to 2 months for CCBA, and we recommend 2.5 to 5 or so weeks, 2.5 to 4 weeks of studying for CBAP. It really depends on where you are in your career over the course of 2 to 2.5 months. We recommend that you do that studying, you lace it through your training. So with our training, again, it's a month, and you would start studying pretty quick during the training and interact it together. AAC is somewhere between on the cost between ECBA and the other two. It is 2 hours, 85 questions. It is more about, do you understand the theory? Not can you apply it, but do you understand it? It is also from anywhere. PSI, it's an online proctored exam, and we recommend the same amount of prep for AAC as ECBA. So the steps that you would take to prepare yourself for this would be, the first thing you would do is enroll in a program for training. You attend that training. If it's with adaptive, preferably, obviously, you would start reading the study guide, looking at the BABOK. If you're doing the Agile certification, you would start studying that. Once you get to a point where you have gone through and you've completed your training, you apply to the IIBA. Hopefully you're already a member, so you apply for the exam. Once you've applied for the exam, you have up to 1 year to take the test. So once you've applied, you're still studying. You've probably already been studying by the time you apply. And you apply within a certain period of time of when you expect to actually sit for the exam. You start going through your practice exams. You start taking your practice tests, your practice quizzes. You run through your flashcards, and then ultimately you take your exam and you are certified. So this example is expecting you to be CCBA or CBAP. So in week 1, you're putting in your work experience and your references. If you're ECBA, you don't do this at all. By the time you're done with all of your courseware and you have taken the class and you're ready to apply, you'll fill in your professional development hours at the end of the course, and then you'll finalize and you'll submit your application, pay the fee. Most of these applications are responded to immediately. It's a systemic process unless you are selected for audit. Ultimately, eventually, when you're ready for your test, you are going to pay the exam fees and set up your exam date. Now, we do recommend, if Adaptive offers some levels of training that have pass guarantees, and with those, you will want to take your exam within 3 months of completing the class to qualify for the pass guarantee. Otherwise, the pass guarantee is not applicable. So again, please, if you are not muted, please mute yourself. Now, preparing the application. Start the application at least a month before you actually want to submit it, because with ECBA and AAC, it's not that big of a deal, but with CCBA and CBAP, it can be a pain trying to put in all of your experience. IIBA has a certification handbook that you would want to read and understand what you're getting into. They have things like, they have all kinds of definition about what's expected of you, what's required of you for the application and exam process, but they also have code of conduct that you have to agree to and other things like that. You want to apply within 2 to 3 months of planning to write. So if you're ECBA, as soon as you finish class, you're going to want to go ahead and submit your application so that you can take your exam. Now, if you're CBAP, you don't have to submit it right away, but I do recommend that you have already filled it out before class finishes and click submit and pay the application fee as soon as class completes. It kind of helps keep us accountable to ourselves. You don't have to do that anymore. Just very, very recently, they removed educational information. You do have to provide your PDUs. However you prepared yourself for the certification or whatever training you have gone through, you'll want to provide that. And if you are CCBA or CBAP, you're going to want to provide your work experience. Now, if you're an individual who does a lot of really small projects, you're not going to want to do it by project. You're going to want to do it by year. But if you have projects that span multiple years, you're going to want to do that by project. And CCBA and CBAP, you do still have to provide reference information. It's just they're not often contacted. And most approvals happen right away, but if yours is chosen for audit, it can take about a week. Now, what we know about the exam, it has about a 70% on average pass rate. So that means 1 in 3 don't succeed. There is no negative mark, so you don't want to leave anything unanswered, and you will not know your result percentage. Now, what you will be provided is feedback on the knowledge areas and whether you were below, at, or above average, and then the perspectives. If you look at the BABOK, it's 517 pages, but the last 1/3 of it are all about perspectives, and they aren't impacted. Now, exam tips. It's one of the most important things to understand is to know the BABOK knowledge areas. And there are 6 knowledge areas. The first one is about planning, where you figure out how am I going to approach this thing and who am I going to engage. How am I going to manage change throughout the process? How am I going to store, communicate, track the information, which is all of my requirements put together in like a package? And how do I make sure I'm doing a good job? Then we have elicitation. And this is just almost like any meeting or any presentation you do. You prepare for it, then you actually do it, then you communicate with others and make sure you understood everything, and then you document that and send that out. And then ongoing, and this is one of the more interesting things we do, you manage the collaboration of people, make sure they're working together, make sure that they're communicating well, make sure that you're getting change that you need to get with it, right? And then you'll manage the life cycles, the life cycle of the requirements. So you'll make sure you keep track of what requirements cause what requirements. How is everything related to everything else? And that helps you with all kinds of good stuff. It helps you make sure you're staying in scope, meeting scope. It makes sure that we when we identify a change and we're trying to plan that management of that change, this helps us understand the impact of the change so that we can make good decisions right here. We're going to maintain the requirements, keep them up to date, change their status, keep track of all of the details about it. We're going to make sure everything's prioritized because we've only got so much time and money, and we need to make sure that we hit the most important stuff first. When changes come in, we're going to assess the changes, leveraging the traceability and things like that so that we can manage and work with others to make decisions, right? So we're going to assess the changes, and then ultimately we get these approved. Hopefully we get them approved. And then that takes us into strategy analysis knowledge area. While I'm eliciting, I might be eliciting for strategy information. I might be eliciting detailed requirements. I might be understanding whether or not things are working. But in the beginning of change, or in the beginning of learning anything new about change, we stop for a second and we ask ourselves, okay, so what are we doing today when it comes to this specific thing? And what exactly are we trying to do instead? Where are we trying to go? And understanding the difference between those. That will give me understanding of, if we do this change, what are the risks? What kind of risks will we need to engage in? What risks do I need to give to the project manager so that they can manage those risks? What risks are inherent to the requirements themselves? And this kind of stuff together mixes with requirements analysis and design so that we can define what exactly are we going to do and what is our approach to that. So we're going to buy a new software solution from this vendor, or we're going to build a from scratch solutions because nothing out there handles it, or we're going to just change process. So what is my change strategy? Now that leads me into the requirements analysis area. And there is going to be something I need to let you know. This is supposed to be here, okay? So this task right here is actually part of requirements analysis. So just be aware of that. Out of strategy analysis, I'm going to get understanding of need and some high-level requirements, and then I'm going to have to actually understand what does that mean. So when I do that, I'm going to actually detail them out at the appropriate level of detail for the criticality and complexity and people associated with this change. I might just do user stories with acceptance criteria. Maybe it's too complicated for that, and I need to do some screen mock-ups and some use cases. So whatever is necessary to get that story across so that people can understand and relate to it and give you good feedback, that's what happens right here. And the most important thing here is this word model. Modeling, putting things in pictures, because that helps us work with it better. And so once we've specified and modeled it, we'll get with the people that have to actually act on it to make change so that they can verify that it's usable, right? I can use these requirements to actually implement some value. Once I've verified that my stuff's good when it comes to it's written well, it's usable, then I validate with the business that these requirements are actually going to meet the need. Another thing I'm going to do in this whole process is define how am I going to document this? What is my architecture for requirements? Am I doing pure waterfall, pure agile, hybridizing it? What am I doing? Because that's going to tell me what kind of requirements records I need to keep. How am I going to store it? How do I trace? That's when I'm defining how does that all fit together. And then once I've done that and I combine that with everything else, now I can say, okay, I understand what's going on and I understand where we're trying to go. So I know the requirements and I understand what we need to change. So how can I go about doing that? So then I'll define some design options. What are some ways I can fix this thing? And then once I have these options, we come back into strategy analysis and we say, here are the options. And then your business picks a strategy. I still have someone that's not muted. If you could check your mute status and try to mute your microphone so that we don't have the feedback of sound, that would be very helpful. So once I've designed the options, I'm sorry, I got thrown off because this is down here. When I've designed the options, I'll say buy, build, do nothing. Okay, what's the value of each? Which one should I recommend? That's when I take it back into presenting it to my business so that they can choose a strategy to go forward with. Now, ultimately, I'm either in the middle of development or I've got something already in production and I have to actually make sure that it's working, right? So that's when we hit solution evaluation. I'm going to measure I'm going to define how am I going to measure this and then collect those measurements. I'm going to look at that stuff to see, is it working or is it not? And if it's not working, I'm going to look at both solution and enterprise wide. And I'm going to ask myself, what are the limitations that might be keeping us from experiencing the value we're looking for so I can make recommendations to improve that? So that is in about 5 minutes, the BABOK. That's not enough to pass a test with though. So keep that in mind. There's a lot more to learn, a lot more to study, but that gives it to you at a high level, and hopefully understanding this slide at a high level can help you evaluate the certificate levels so you can figure out which one's right for you. So knowing this and thinking about the projects, you would say, what percentage of my hours on these projects for that year fell into these tasks, so it fell into this knowledge area. Doing that will help you figure out what certification level's right for you. So know the tasks. So it helps not only with you figuring out what level of certification is appropriate for you, but memorizing the tasks and the knowledge areas will help you, right? So memorize what you can so that you're not having to try to remember the basics. Memorize those basics, because what that does is it gives you more time for the harder questions that require you to really think about the business analysis process. Now, we're going to show you a mind map in a little bit here, and it's going to help you understand the flow a little bit, and it's going to help you memorize things a little bit better. But think about what is it to be a business analyst. That will help you remember your knowledge areas, and it will also help you understand of those knowledge areas and tasks, what goes into those knowledge areas and tasks to make them possible, and when you're done with it, what comes out. Right? So if you just think about being a business analyst and try to relate it to those knowledge areas and tasks, it's really, really going to help. Know your modeling. If you are CCBA or CBAP, ECBA doesn't have as much of this, but CCBA has some and CBAP has significant expectation of understanding process modeling, UML, things like use cases and user stories and agile versus not, and then things like that. Understanding, even understanding activity diagrams and ERDs and all of those modeling techniques are going to be very important. And when you understand them, you're going to much more readily know what knowledge areas or tasks or situations might I leverage those in. So another thing that's really important, this is why it's red. Like in the application process, it'll actually challenge you and ask you, what tasks did you do for this project in business analysis, planning, and monitoring? And it's going to give you tasks that are associated with BA, PM, QA. And if you choose any of the tasks that are not BA, it's going to kick you out. And it will also, the same idea flows into the test process. They'll ask you some questions that will, have some responses that are not BA. And if you choose those, you won't get that question right. Another thing you're going to want to look for are words like must, only, and accountable. Look for those words in the BABOK. It's going to help you understand what they expect of the business analyst versus other roles. So when you're thinking about your knowledge areas and the tasks, know the purpose of each task. Like, why do you plan? Why do you assess enterprise limitations? Understanding those will help. On the techniques, understanding what the technique is and why you would use it is important. Strengths and limitations are listed in the BABOK. And I know when I took my test, I memorized strengths and limitations, not word for word, right? Just like using mnemonics or understanding brevity. So you'll want to be able to do that, because each task in the BABOK will have a list of techniques that are potentially useful, and you will need to understand that when you take your exam. As you go through training, if you were to go through training with adaptive, we spread it out over 4 weeks, and the first 2 weeks are all about BABOK, and the last 2 weeks are all about prep. So the first 2 weeks, like you would work with Peter on the first week. He helped write the exam and he helped write the BABOK, so he's a great resource. He will be teaching you certain knowledge areas. And between the days, between that weekend and the weekend you have me teaching you, you will go ahead and try to work through your digital study bank. You'll start working through those chapters he covered before you come to me, so that if you have any questions, you can start asking me before we cover the knowledge areas for that weekend. Ideally, we recommend you choose a package that has more than at least 4 simulation tests. Taking at least 4 simulation tests greatly increases your chances of passing, and the packages that provide pass guarantee have 6 simulation tests. The ones that you got wrong, really look at them. Our study guides and our question banks actually give you explanation as to why the question was wrong. And maximum focus is on knowledge areas and activities. There's not as many questions on techniques. There are questions on techniques. ECBA has really high level questions. CCBA has moderate level questions, and CBAP has deep questions on techniques, but not as much as knowledge areas and activities. Obviously, try to stay relaxed. I mean, it's a test, right? So it's not easy to do that. But if you don't cram the night before. Don't try to read everything and cram the night before. That will increase anxiety. It's best to give that night a break. Let your brain rest, sleep good, eat good. All of your normal basic exam tips, it applies to this too. And a test is a test is a test. So do the same thing that you have ever done on any of the other tests that have helped you be confident. Not all the time, but very often in the certification exam, the first few questions are meant to make you uncomfortable. So it's important to be aware of that. But don't let it scare you. And if you hit a question that you're not comfortable with, mark it as review and go forward. Move ahead. Don't try to stress over it and spend forever trying to answer it. Skip ahead. Just select something and move forward, and you can come back to it later. Okay? So some basic test taking. Ellen has provided some mnemonics, but honestly, mnemonics are better if you make them. Mnemonics are better if there's something you can relate to, and the process you go through of creating them actually helps you remember the material better. Anything you're not familiar with, don't just stick to any of the training material that's provided to you by the training company, which is in this case us. If you aren't great at sequence diagrams or ERDs, go read more about them somewhere else. And if you're a member of IIBA, you can leverage that online digital knowledge base. And choose the closest option, not just a correct option. So, because often there is more than one correct answer, but there's a best answer. So you'll need to choose the best answer for that. Another thing, you all have differing levels of experience, right? And your experience is based on the companies you've worked for, the culture you've worked in. And so you have one view. One of the things to remember of this is it's a combination of many different viewpoints, and it's best practice. So try not to, it's very easy for us to get stuck in that mindset of, well, this is what I would do based on my experience. It's very, very important you understand what the BABOK expects of you. Differentiate between that. Okay? All right. So another thing to think about. The questions are usually straightforward, but not always, because this is written by people all over the world. So you're going to have differing cultures and different things like that. So you will have to be able to adapt to a different way of communicating. So be aware of that. It's nothing to stress over, but it does happen. ECBA, your questions aren't long, and they're not going to have diagrams. CCBA, you'll start to have some longer questions with diagrams. CBAP will definitely have some long questions with diagrams. And again, often any one of the options could work, but only one is correct according to IIBA and the BABOK. So keep that in mind. If the question is really prescriptive, like it says 100% or can only be this or must always be that, beware. Because that's usually not the answer, because business analysis is the most flexible and the function that requires the most adaptability of its practitioners. So anything that's really, really prescriptive is probably a red flag. Don't use terms that aren't in the BABOK. So like some people might call a work breakdown structure, work breakdown system. That's not correct. So be very familiar with the terms in the BABOK. During the test, again, flag the stuff you're not sure of. Go ahead and answer it, but flag it for review later. Process of elimination, especially on the majority of those that, well, I could do any of those, but which of these is the one I would be least likely to select based on the BABOK? Just start doing that, and you'll usually get it down to like 2 that are pretty close. And you have to select one, but questions are usually pretty simple and the answers are all pretty close to each other. So it's going to be a process of elimination and just choose the best one. Okay. Critical success factors. You really want high quality content. And I would say that we do have that. I was willing to work with Adaptive for a reason. Expert facilitators. With Adaptive, you get, all 3 of us have had 20 plus years of experience in business analysis. All 3 of us are certified. 2 of us helped write the exam. 1 of us helped write the book. And then 1 of us is an international leader in the IIBA organization. So you've got really great experts available to you. We have a 95% pass rate. It actually probably is between 95 and 100. We just say 95. So this process works. The process we use works because we don't just give you a tool and teach you and then disappear. You have end-to-end support. You have an online study bank that's actually available to you for a full year, and it's got templates and stuff like that that you can continue to use even after you've passed your exam. Our questions in our question bank, they are much more similar to what you actually will experience on the test. Now, some of the cases aren't as long. I mean, the IIBA exam has some really long questions, but it's modeled very similarly. It is the most similar in presentation and things like that. And it's important to have people that have gone through the exam to give you tips and tricks on how to pass it. So you don't want to receive training from someone that's not certified and hasn't gone through it. And we have an individual, LN, has actually gone through and passed certification on all 3 levels. And he's available to anyone that joins our training processes. Why us? Well, I kind of mentioned some of it, right? IIBA exam committees. We are leaders in IIBA. We are a premier partner. If you choose the right package, we offer a success guarantee. There's only 1 package at each level that does not do that. We have a very high pass rate. We give you end-to-end support, like I already mentioned, and we will run our sessions. Our sessions are guaranteed to run. If they're on the website, they will run with very, very, very few exceptions. Okay. We have an online learning platform. It's really robust. You can check it out for free. Over 100 videos on version 3, a study guide that's like a Cliff Note version, over 3,500 practice tests and multiple exam simulators. And this is huge. This helps you not just test it jumps around in the knowledge areas and tasks. So it gets you used to that. And it mixes it all up. So it's not about memorization as much. And it helps you psychologically, because when you step into the parametric process, if you're doing one of the more complicated exams, it's going to feel very familiar to you. So check that out for free. It's actually pretty cool. It has our mind maps are on there. We have a lot of audiobooks so that you can actually take advantage of the quiet time in your car, make it less quiet, but still useful. It's got flashcards that are really, really helpful. And it's built, the exam prep tips are built into it as well. And there's a library for advanced BA topics, and that's where you're going to find some of your study guides and some of the application simulators and some things like that. It also has some templates that you can actually use in your job. So it's got some really cool stuff available. We do have a special offer for workshop attendees. Ignore this. It's going to be for it will be for the April and May batches. So this early bird prices, if you go on and you sign up, you will get early bird pricing. If you sign up within a certain time frame of attending the webinar, if the early bird pricing is gone, I believe you receive a discount because you attended the webinar, and it's considered a quick decision. If you attend the webinar, even if early bird prices are gone, you can still qualify for a discount. But at this point, the April classes are coming up really, really soon, so it might be best for you to consider the May classes. So that is there. I can show you the mind map if you would like. I can cover that. So we're going to close out of this presentation slide deck, and I am going to go to the Succeed platform so you can see what our Succeed platform looks like. And I'm going to show you some information here, and in one of these areas we will find the mind map, and I will be able to show you what that looks like. So this is where you have all of your study guides and some reference material that help you study and prepare. It gives you plans, like, you tell it, this is when I would like to take my exam. And then it says, okay, based on that, this is when you need to do each of these tasks. This is how you need to move through the process of preparation. It gives you all kinds of really cool stuff. It's got study guides that are like Cliff Notes. I believe those are printable so that you can highlight and do whatever you want to with them. It's got all kinds of workbooks to help you really sink the information in and relate to it well. This is not what I am looking for. So let's look at the techniques map real quick here. So the BAWOC has 50 basic techniques that are associated with the core section. Some of the perspectives and then the Agile extension, they have additional techniques, but these are the techniques that you will be expected to understand in the exam. Now, these techniques are not one-to-one. Functional decomposition can go with planning, or with requirements analysis and design, or with strategy analysis. So we can go into any of those. But this is a good way to kind of like keep in mind and memorize what are the techniques, because you can group them into like functional capabilities and areas of knowledge. But what you will want to ensure that this is a good starting point. But one of the really important things for you to consider is to prepare yourself to study and memorize knowledge areas, tasks. Be familiar with these techniques. Don't memorize them in conjunction with these knowledge areas. The more you understand these techniques, the better you will know when might this be used in which knowledge area or task, right? So understanding the purpose and the strengths of each technique will help you with your test. There is a mind map for the knowledge areas, and I am, interestingly, not seeing it on here. Oh, here we go. I bet it's this. Okay, yes, they didn't label it mind map. So this is the mind map for the knowledge areas and tasks that was mentioned in the presentation that we just covered. And it talks about, okay, the organization has these objectives, these organizational strategic objectives that they have. Based on that, a need might come into play because maybe we aren't meeting those objectives well. So a business requirement is born, and that's a business need. And then we start, all of those knowledge areas and tasks that we covered on that page in the presentation, we, we're going to plan how are we going to talk to people, and then it actually gives us our plan. And then we're going to plan our approach. Is this waterfall? Is it agile? Is it hybrid? What is our approach to business analysis? And then we're going to have a plan to that approach. And then we're going to start talking about or deciding based on that, how am I going to engage my people? How am I going to engage everybody? How am I going to manage the data? So all of this stuff, what's new in this that was not in that slide that I shared with you earlier are some inputs and outputs. So what this shows you is my BA approach helps me determine, it's an input to these activities. Identify BA performance improvement, and output to that is how am I going to approach my BA information? What's my information plan? Right? Governance. What's my governance approach? What's my requirements management plan? What's my solution evaluation plan? So outputs. This helps you really think about the process. Now, what it doesn't necessarily show you is how interconnected these all are. I'll start to talk to people and someone will say, okay, we have this need from the business. Really? Okay, so I'll go engage them. I start talking to them where they are, where they want to go. That helps me define some of these things. I'm in there while I'm doing this. So I've planned my approach. I have to start eliciting, get information so I can start defining the strategy understanding. It might take me back to elicitation, which takes me back here. Ultimately, I start documenting things. So I have to start managing them. Eventually, once I get a little bit deeper into the detail, I start doing analysis and design. And then I might flow back into strategy analysis. At any given point, I might evaluate existing solutions or solutions in the process of being developed. So I'm going to move all around on this mind map the entire time I'm functioning. And I can flow in and out of almost any of these to almost any of these. And in your BABOK, you will have, in your BABOK, in the sections of the BABOK, sorry, I'm trying to get it pulled up for you real quick. At the beginning of each of these sections, there are going to be these diagrams that are really helpful, and you'll also find them in some of our training material. So, whoops, sorry, that was a bit jumpy. Okay, let me do it this way. So you'll see that for the overall knowledge area, here is your input-output diagram for the knowledge area in general. So in this little diagram, we see elicitation and collaboration has these tasks. These are the inputs and from which chapters it comes in, and these are the outputs, right? And then when you get into the tasks themselves, you'll start to see more focused little diagrams that talk about that task itself, just that task, and what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and what tasks does this task feed into. What's interesting is when you start getting into some of these, you'll start to see that tasks from, you might have situations where, for example, 6.2, so defining future state can loop me back into chapter 4, or can feed me into chapters 7 or 8. And these chapters can sometimes take me, when I'm looking at risks, chapters 4, 5, and 6 can feed this. I can actually have chapters after this that feed this as well. So that will be very helpful for you to understand the flow. This is where you start because it helps you, get that high level picture and relate to it a little bit. And then as you get into your studying, you start looking at all of that detail. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions?
Thank you so much.
You bet. I am happy to hang on for a few minutes to see if anyone has any questions that I can help with. If not, please feel free to connect with myself, Ananya, or Ellen on LinkedIn. Ask us additional questions there after this sinks in. Ideally, we would love to see you in some training and get you certified and have you joining the ranks of professionals that are working every day to change the world one project at a time.
Hi, this is Shubham. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. So actually I have a question. On the Adaptive Gears website itself, I saw some queries regarding comparison between MBAs and CCBA certified people, or
Okay.
how. So it is more kind of alternate approach what I can see. So after MBA, what value add a CCBA would do to a profile? I just want to understand that.
Okay, so you're comparing a master's of business administration to the business analysis certification. Is that what I understand?
No, actually, I'm just asking that after an MBA, like a person who has completed the MBA,
Okay.
how would a business analyst certificate would help?
Oh, if you're
Just want
talking
to understand.
about, yeah, if you're going to be working primarily in business, any function in business, business analysis will equip you with tools and techniques and capabilities that will help you perform better in business at whatever role that you're in, honestly. And I mean, that's a challenge for business analysts because it's actually a skill set and a function as well as a profession. When it comes to everyday understanding, if you are working in a smaller, if you wind up working in a smaller organization and you want to be in management in business, having a business analysis certification is going to make you an amazing resource for leading change, especially in the absence of a business analyst. Now, with that said, if you're going to do if you're getting an MBA and your focus isn't necessarily to be a business analyst purely, you're looking for being in leadership and doing other elements in an organization, having a BA certification is amazingly helpful in teaching you how to be objective, right? Because the more we are in business and the closer we are to a specific function in business or a specific technology solution, we start evaluating or perceiving the world around us with our biases and assumptions based on our closeness to that situation. If you have if you're getting trained as a business analyst, it helps you be more objective. It helps you recognize when you are operating on those biases and assumptions, and it helps you recognize when change is needed and what that change, is driven by, so that when you do engage a business analyst, because honestly, business analysis and change are hard. It is a full-time job. But if I had people in the business that were also certified analysts, they would be more equipped to bring me high quality change understanding so that when I get engaged, it's easier and it's less painful. And they've already started working on getting people ready for the change, both emotionally and intellectually. So MBA and business analysis certification go very well together.
Thank you. I guess I got the answer. Thank you.
Okay. I'm looking at some questions. Oh, I didn't see this question earlier. I hope that Alcides was able to adjust or correct that issue.
Yes, I did.
Okay, excellent. Yay. Okay. Sorry, I was like full on in teaching mode.
I know. But I didn't hear anything about prices, something like that.
Oh, so adaptive pricing. Yeah, adaptive pricing isn't included in the presentation itself, but if you go to our website, and I will show you very briefly how to get to it. So if you go to adaptiveus.com and you look at whatever level of certification you're looking for, right? So let's choose CBAP. You'll go to the training calendar. Whichever level you're looking for, you're going to go to training calendar. When you get there, you're going to see some information about the timing and things like that. You're going to choose a course and the month you're interested in. So let's just choose May to start. And then you'll say book your classes, and it's going to give you the 3 levels available to you. It's going to tell you everything included, and then it's going to give you the pricing for early bird versus afterward. And every one of the levels and months, you will select whatever level and month you're interested in taking it, and it will provide you this level of detail.
Perfect. Got it. And I have to pay the price once, or I can pay in the way I can use the information, or I'm going through
no, when you purchase those packages, you purchase the package. So whatever package you choose You purchase that package, you receive the training, and then you receive the benefits from all of that stuff immediately. Some of those elements that are showing here, sorry, let me go back to this. Some of these elements are available without purchasing the whole thing. Like there's some audiobooks you can get separate. There are some things you can receive separately. Not every one of these elements can you purchase separately. Some of them you can. But the ideal situation and where we have the most success, honestly, is at this level, these two levels. And that's why these two levels come with a pass guarantee and the others do not.
Thank you so much.
Shubham, again, one more additional question on the same.
Sure.
So, do we have simulators? Can you purchase simulators separately? If I just need to practice and see that if I'm prepare for the exam.
Yeah. So I think. Yeah, I think that you can. I think that you can purchase the question bank on its own. There's also the option of. There is also the option of the self-study. The self-study comes with the individual questions, the exam simulations, and other study material, like the flashcards and stuff. Say that again?
Laura, can I just interrupt?
Yes, please.
When they buy the question banks, it's also there on the website, like you went from the menu structure. So when they buy the question bank, that includes the chapter-wise questions, which is the knowledge area-wise questions, as well as the simulators.
Okay. No, Ananya, so actually I just went through the material and there was a part where there was a same simulator, which is kind of same environment providing, like kind of online something, right? Or test something. So do we have that as a part of, individual purchase?
Yes, that is the one that I talked about. Similar to Prometric, you must have seen similar to Prometric Center, Prometric features.
True, exactly. Yes.
That gives you a environment similar to what you are going to experience in your exam.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ananya.
No problems. You're always welcome.
I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about specifically on the AAC certification, Agile Analysis certification, which is pretty new? Like how is that preparation for that different from CBAP or any other certification?
Well, the process of preparation is similar across the board. All of them are similar. The AAC, it engages the same way. It just focuses on the Agile extension. So because that's all you're tested on with AAC. You're tested on your understanding of the Agile extension. So the training, it still has a study bank. It still has a training. It still has all of these things. And the only difference being the material that is presented being focused on the Agile extension as opposed to the BABOK.
Okay, all right. And from the exam, like the pattern and all that is pretty similar to what we have for CBAP?
No, it's more similar to ECBA. It's mostly focused on like knowledge base stuff. So do you understand the theory? And that's why it doesn't have any experience requirements. It doesn't have any PDU requirements. It doesn't have anything like that. So it's a lot closer. It's probably somewhere between like an ECBA and a CCBA when it comes to the complexity. It is not like the CBAP.
Okay. I mean, so it's a value add though, right? I mean,
oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you had both a BA certification as well as the AAC, that's powerful.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You bet. I do have a hard stop at noon because I am scheduled to assist some of our existing students for preparing for their exams. So if anyone has any final questions, please feel free, like I said, to connect with Ananya, myself, or LN. We are always available through LinkedIn. You can always, if you come up with additional questions, you can always call our toll-free line. And I am, if you call about the training questions about like the training that we offer and things like that, I would actually be the one to take that phone call and assist you. So I thank you for joining. I wish you the best in your dedication to your career. It's really exciting to see you guys showing the interest. So I wish you great success. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.